Well, yesterday, Texas Senator Ted Cruz had a fierce back and forth with the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas. The verbal battle happened as the secretary was being grilled by Senator Cruz before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Here's part of it.
How many children have been sold into sex slavery under your administration?
Senator, we are taking it to the cartels.
How many children have been sold into sex slavery? Do you know how many children have been sold into sex slavery?
To an unprecedented degree.
Mr. Secretary, I want to say to you right now, your behavior is disgraceful, and the deaths, the children assaulted, the children raped, they are at your feet, and if you had integrity, you would resign. And I will tell you, the men and women of the Border Patrol, they've never had a political leader undermine them. They despise you, Mr. Secretary.
What the senator said was revolting. I'm not going to address it.
Your refusal to do your job is revolting.
Earlier today, I spoke with Senator Cruz. He's a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which was that committee, and a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thank you very much for joining me, sir.
Greta, great to be with you.
Senator, you had a rather blistering conversation with the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas. Tell me, you said he wasn't doing his job. What specifically do you want from him?
Well, it's very simple for him to do his job and secure the border. I got to say, yesterday's hearing in the Senate Judiciary Committee was infuriating. Number one, because he won't answer a question. He stands there defiantly and insists nothing's wrong. And he has presided over the worst crisis at our southern border in the history of our country. We've seen over 5.5 million illegal immigrants cross under Joe Biden, under Alejandro Mayorkas. And what is so infuriating is that's not an accident. That's not incompetence. It is the outcome they want. It is the result of political decisions made by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to open up the border. And the result is we are seeing incredible human suffering. I asked him yesterday about the record number of illegal immigrants that die every year crossing the border, about the children, about the pregnant women, about the elderly people abandoned to die in the desert. I asked him about the young children who were physically and sexually assaulted by the human traffickers. And for every one of those questions, he takes no responsibility whatsoever. He doesn't even admit it's a problem. I asked him about the over 100,000 overdoses we had last year because of the Chinese fentanyl flooding across the border. And again, he refuses to take responsibility. But even worse, he intends to continue doing the same things, which means these problems will only get worse.
Is it the impossible task, or do you think he's the punching bag for a policy that you disagree with, or is this something that he wants to do? Is he content with the way it is? Give me your view of that, because it's a very perplexing problem with this border. It's been a problem for more than this administration.
Well, look, securing the border is a challenge, but with respect, Greta, we actually know how to do it. And if you look at 2020, the last year of the Trump presidency, we had the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. What we were doing was working. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Alejandro Mayorkas came in and they deliberately undid the success that we were achieving. It was 3 decisions in particular that caused this crisis. Number one, on day one, Biden immediately halted construction of the border wall. Number two, he reinstated the disastrous policy of catch and release. And number three, he pulled out of the incredibly successful Remain in Mexico policy, where people who crossed illegally into Mexico stayed in Mexico while their U.S. asylum case was proceeding. All of those had worked. They were successful. And the Biden administration deliberately unwound all of them. If you want to know how to fix the problem, it's not rocket science. Reverse those 3 decisions. Build the wall, end catch and release, and reinstate Remain in Mexico. And Joe Biden doesn't want to do it because he looks at those 5.5 million people coming here illegally, and he views all of them or most of them as future Democrat voters. And what is so maddening is they're willing to turn a blind eye to the incredible suffering. I got to say, the most stunning moment in yesterday's cross-examination is when I put up a picture of the wristbands that illegal immigrants wear when they cross. And I asked Secretary Mayorkas, what are these? And he said, I have no idea. And I got it. That was the one moment of the testimony that genuinely surprised me. I said at the time, I said, you've just confessed to the American people you are utterly incompetent at your job. Just about every illegal immigrant arrives wearing a colored wristband. The colors correspond to how many thousands of dollars they owe the Mexican drug cartels. And if you stand on the banks of the Rio Grande River, as I have many times, the grass is littered with these bracelets that they take off at the time. And for the fact that he doesn't know, what that tells you is he has no idea what the Border Patrol agents are doing every day, how they're risking their lives, and he doesn't care. He does not care about the victims of his lawless policies.
All right, let me turn to a vote today in the U.S. Senate to repeal the authorized use of military force from 1991 as well as 2003. How did you vote, sir?
So I voted no, but I'll tell you on this issue, I'm in the middle on this issue, which is I very much wanted to vote yes. I wanted to vote to repeal the authorization of the use of military force against Iraq. I think the Iraq war was a mistake. I've been vocal on that for a long time, that the Iraq war was a mistake. And so I wanted to vote yes, but I had an amendment that I introduced. I introduced on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and I introduced it on the floor. And I told my colleagues, if you adopt my amendment, I will vote yes. I will vote to repeal the AUMF. If you reject my amendment, I will vote no. And what my amendment did is it made clear that the president has, under Article 2 of the Constitution, the authority to respond to Iran and to defend our troops in the field. Iran, in the last 2.5 years under Joe Biden, has attacked American troops 82 different times. 82 times. Biden has responded only 3 times. So 79 of the times he did nothing, and it's endangering our troops. And what I argue to my colleagues is that if we just repeal the AUMF and we don't make clear that the commander-in-chief has full authority to protect our servicemen and women, then we are endangering our soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines. My amendment ended up getting 41 votes on the floor of the Senate, but sadly, it did not get enough to pass, and so I was forced to vote no on the repeal of the AUMF.
Whatever happened to the fact that Congress is supposed to have the right to declare war, and yet we've had so many military actions where there's been no formal declaration? Whatever happened to that?
Look, you're exactly right, and that's a big part of the reason why I wanted to vote to repeal the AUMF, is that under the Constitution, the authority to declare war is given to Congress. And I think Congress has been derelict in asserting that authority, that too many Congresses have acquiesced to presidents of both parties to engage in war. I think Congress should be far more vigorous in overlooking and supervising military conduct. At the same time, so the war-making power is divided between Congress and the president. The power to declare war is given to Congress, but the responsibility to be commander-in-chief under Article 2 of the Constitution is given to the president. And one of the inherent powers of commander-in-chief is to defend our troops from an attack or an imminent attack. And when it comes to Iran, this is not theoretical. Iran is the one nation on earth that is attacking our troops over and over and over again and trying to kill American troops. And I'll tell you, Greta, the reason that Biden won't respond is the #1 foreign policy objective of the Biden White House is to enter into another disastrous Iran nuclear deal. And so as a result, they're willing to roll over for the Ayatollah over and over and over again and ignore attacks on American troops. It is wrong. It is dangerous. And Biden's weakness has made America far more in jeopardy.
All right, well, sometime I'll come back and talk about the fact that whether any deal that should be made should be a treaty rather than just an executive order or deal with the president. But we'll save that for another day. Senator Ted Cruz, thank you for joining me, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks, Greta.